So, I definitely had some great stats in high school and stuff like that. But a big thing in recruiting, like that, I think it's starting to go away a little bit. Um, it's your measurables, like they're looking for, super tall guys, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm just not blessed in that area. But, I was fortunate for the opportunity I did end up getting from Dayton, which then put me in the opportunity to be able to move to an FBS school. Yeah, I don't know. My roster says 6 foot. I don't know how. I'm definitely not 6 foot. 5'11" normally. But big thing like going to camps and stuff. I know I've heard coaches say, like, even like coaches that I had here before they like left, they said they used to have to hit 6 foot or they wouldn't even look at you. But then times changed and they said they're just looking for guys that can play ball. And that was one big thing in the portal. That's why like I got a lot more eyes on me. I'm sure the stats at my last school helped a lot, but like they just want guys that can play ball now. And you're seeing that at, a decent amount of schools. So going in as a freshman, I kind of like understood like, chances of playing defense are really slim. I had some really good guys in front of me. Um, but I grinded, worked super hard just to get on special teams because one thing the coaches were always saying, get on special teams to earn your way on defense. So I ended up playing 4 games on special teams. It was like the first 4 games of the season. And I ended up knowing I wanted to keep my red shirt so I could have my 5th year because I didn't want to burn a year for special teams. Um, and just went on from there. It was in the back of my head a little bit, like towards the end of last season. A lot of my friends were pushing me to go and, they were saying to do the right thing. So, but, going to Dayton, I didn't think I was going to leave there in a year or two or something like that. It just ended up happening. Going through that process again, like in the portal, kind of made me feel like I was getting what I finally like thought I deserved out of high school. And it was stressful, like phone calls, texts, visits every single day. It got overwhelming, like 100%. But it was like part of making like my younger self proud because I'm finally getting to go through this. All the coaches, like similar coaches who didn't respond to me back in high school are now hitting me up. I was on my initial visit, so I got a few offers to start from the portal. I was on a visit, and I'm not going to say what school, but they were trying to get me to commit on the visit or say like my offer was gone. And it was like one of the first FBS teams I ended up going on a visit at, and I was just not in a good place about it. And I was pretty stressed because like walking away from an opportunity, I could be walking away from a full scholarship. I kind of just, chanced it and I ended up leaving there. And thankfully, the day that I left that visit, I got a phone call from Coach Morrison, who was the linebackers coach here. And he offered me the full scholarship. And he told me, I want you here this week, and we put it together that next day after he called me. Coach Leffler was the head coach. They got me in here. And I was pretty sold on this place. And I pretty much knew when I was here that I was going to end up committing here. And I absolutely love this place. Oh man. So you go through your winter conditioning workouts. It's hellish, it's a lot of work, like early mornings. And we go through our last one and it was like fun, like costume themed lift. The whole team was wearing costumes. Got through the last workout, everyone's celebrating in the locker room, dancing, listening to music. And then we get a notification on our phone that we have an emergency meeting at 8:30 and everyone has to be there. And we're like, what's going on? And I've had a head coach leave before. So when I walk in the room, I see our athletic director in a suit. I'm like, oh, uh-oh, that's not good. And then Coach Leffler walked in and he's like, guys, got the call from the Eagles last night, taking the job. So, I've never heard of being in a room that was so quiet. Um, and then, it's pretty stressful, but in that time, different schools like might follow you on stuff, but, I wasn't leaving. I was pretty happy where I'm at. I'm an hour and 30 minutes from home. I didn't feel like going through the whole transfer process again. And then got word that Eddie George got the job. My mom's like hero. My mom's side of the family's diehard OSU fans, so they were all excited. I was pretty pumped. My older brother called me as soon as he got word about it. He's like, "Dude, when you see him, you need to tell him I used to play with him in Madden like '04 and stuff like that." So that was really awesome. Like in my mind, I told you guys I'm not the biggest. The other starting backer with me is not, me and him are like the same height. But, there's always a natural concern. Like they could just bring in other guys and tell us to get lost, that happens at places. But, I just know I was going to prove myself. And my new linebacker coach, he tried to recruit me out of high school, which was really, really like helpful for me just thinking about it. But he came in, he gathered us as linebackers. He's like, listen, guys, it's see ball, get ball. Like if you can't run and hit like that, like, we don't want you here. And I just knew that suited me perfectly. Um, so just putting my head down and working like a lot of us, the entire team did, just to prove ourselves to the new coaches. Like we knew they were going to bring in more people, but like we're still going to have to do our jobs, and just keep grinding every day. So I was definitely like able to prove myself during spring ball. And I love the new staff completely. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I learned a lot about football. Just like football in general. Like there, I had great coaches, man. And a big thing that they hammered was just read your keys, do your job. And coming to a bigger school, I played against my first like Power Four opponent last week. I was kind of like, I get nervous before every game, but before that, I'm like, is this going to be that much of a difference? But going out there, like, it's literally the same thing. Just read your keys, do your job. Guys a little bigger, slightly faster, but, it's still just football. And I felt great. I had a blast. I played like a pretty decent game.
Mhm.
So I definitely think what I learned and like how I played at Dayton, how I was coached, definitely helped me uh, transferring up to the FBS level. You gotta know the situation you're going into and like just the kind of defense, because like the defense I was in, just looking from my own experience last year at Dayton, I allowed the linebackers to flow. That's why me and the other backer there played so good. It was designed for us. So if you could go to a smaller school, know you're going to put up the stats. I'd advise against I'd advise to go to a smaller school. But if you're going to go to a big school and wait, that's also great because you can redshirt and then you can develop, watch the guys in front of you. How much stronger you get in your first year, in like year or two at any school, any program, that's going to make such a big difference for you going forward and to eventually starting or playing. So, but if I had to choose one, obviously I'll go with the one that, fits me the most, going to a smaller school, playing, and then transferring up. I definitely want to put like my individual goals are pretty aligned with the teams, like because I've been on like decent pro. Like my first year at Dayton, we were 9-2. Last year, I think we were 6-6, and the year before that, we were a little lesser than that. And biggest thing, like I've had the stats at my last school. Coming to a bigger school, I'm a captain. That was my dream. So getting that already accomplished one of my individual goals, and I would just want to keep leading. But my biggest goal is to win. Like I hate losing. Everyone here hates losing more than they like winning. I just don't want to lose. So that is literally like stats, man. Stats be damned. Like I just want to win. And I want to have a spectacular defense. On all aspects. I want to like have the number one defense in the MAC. That's 100% my goals, individual goals / team goals. Yeah, like especially going play. I'm going to keep using this as an example. Like going and playing at Cincinnati last week. These guys were some of them were five, like probably 4 or 5 stars transferring in from other schools. And like knowing that they got what I never had just motivates me even more to go out there and play harder. And I definitely got a lot to prove. All of us do, especially going against bigger schools and stuff like that. But we're going to keep fighting and doing what we do. Yeah, I just gotta get better in all aspects. I gotta advance my knowledge more about the game and like my like studying and stuff like that. And I just need to get faster. Just little things like that. They'll all add into the bigger picture of playing like at the next level. Coming out of high school and like a lot of kids experience it, and I can't like stress enough how much it hurt. Because I always thought I deserved to go to like a bigger school, but nothing's wrong with Dayton. I love that place so much, but I always thought I wanted to go somewhere else, and I always thought I was overlooked, and like even going at camps and stuff like that. But my biggest advice is just to control what you can control. You can't control if a college coach wants to recruit you and stuff like that. But what you can is your performance on the field. So wherever you get that opportunity to go, if you ball out, the coaches at the bigger schools are going to find you. So that's the biggest thing to kids who are in my position who think they were good enough, had the stats to prove it. You just can't let your work ethic give. You're going to have to keep going. You're going to have to push even harder, especially because you've been overlooked, and that's one thing that motivated me. Like these guys all doubted me. I'm just going to keep working harder and harder, never missing lift. I've never been late to anything in college my entire life, and if that starts to slip, you don't deserve, you probably don't deserve to move up. Love this game more than just about anyone. And oh man. Sheesh. Root for, all I gotta say is root for the Falcons. So defensively, we're gonna, regardless of the score, we're gonna keep smacking stuff. We're gonna keep running to the football like relentlessly. Like even if the score is not exactly in our favor, we're gonna keep running. Effort's never gonna give. And then offensively, they run the ball hard, man. We got a great line, great quarterback. They're going to keep doing their thing. I'm really excited. But, watching it, we play like how football's supposed to be played. We win the trenches, run the ball hard, stop the run. It's everything people want in football. So. It's just game by game. I love Bowling Green. I plan on using my 5th year here next year. But obviously I want to play in the league. That's everyone's dream, especially in college football. Everyone wants to go play on Sundays, But, obviously football doesn't last forever. But so obviously if the league doesn't work out, one thing that I plan on doing 100% without a doubt is going into coaching. Because I don't know how I'm going to get away from the game. I love this stuff so much, and I look at like the coaches I've had in the past, like especially my ones at Dayton, the ones I have here, who made me love the game so much. I feel like I could do what they did to me and like for themselves, into me, making me love the game, making me a better person. I think I can do that for other kids. And I think that's like the most fulfilling part of the job. And I think that I can be a great coach. I think I could do that for the rest of my life and be really happy.